The moment someone slowly tested the handle of my apartment door, my stomach dropped. Because earlier that day, I had gone alone to meet a man from a Craigslist listing, and something about him had felt very wrong. I'm 22 years old, and this happened about a month ago when I had just moved into my first apartment in Columbus, Ohio. While trying to furnish the place cheaply, I found a Craigslist listing for a gray sectional couch that looked almost brand new. The price was unbelievably low. The seller asked people to contact him by email. His address was darrenfletcher84@gmail.com. I sent a quick message asking if the couch was still available. He replied within minutes, accepted my offer right away, and asked for my home address so he could deliver it. That made me uncomfortable, so I told him I'd rather pick it up myself. At first he kept insisting on delivering it, but the next day he sent me his address instead. He lived only about 15 minutes away. Looking back, that's where I made my mistake. I drove over there that afternoon. The neighborhood looked normal enough, but his house stood out. It was smaller and older than the others on the block. When I rang the doorbell, a man in his late 40s answered. He wore a faded baseball cap and gave me this wide, overly friendly smile. "Come on in," he said. The moment I stepped inside, I felt uneasy. The living room was strangely empty. The couch sat alone in the middle of the room. No coffee table, no TV, no decorations, just the couch. And the curtains were completely closed, even though it was the middle of the afternoon. Then I noticed something else. A faint, sour smell in the air, like something old and damp. I tried to ignore it and looked at the couch. And immediately I knew something was wrong. The couch looked nothing like the pictures. The armrests were scratched. The cushions had small tears. There were dark stains on the fabric. I pointed it out. He just smiled again and offered to lower the price. That's when I decided I was leaving. I told him I wasn't interested anymore and started heading for the door. That's when things got creepy. As I walked past him, he suddenly placed his hand on my shoulder, tightening his grip just enough to stop me. Then he leaned closer and said something that made my skin crawl. He told me he'd give me the couch for free if I was willing to do him a favor. I pulled away immediately and walked straight out of the house. I didn't say another word. I got into my van and drove away as fast as I could. At that point, I thought the situation was over. But later that night, I was lying in bed watching TV when I heard something outside my apartment. At first it sounded like footsteps on the porch. Then I heard something very clear. The sound of someone slowly turning my front door handle, very slowly, like someone testing it to see if it was locked. My heart started pounding so hard I thought whoever was outside might hear it. I muted the TV and listened. The handle moved again, quiet, careful. Then suddenly it stopped. For a moment there was complete silence. I stood frozen, staring at the door. Then I heard something else. The metal gate to my backyard slowly creaked open, then clicked shut again. Someone was still outside. That's when I grabbed my phone and called 911. While I was still talking to the dispatcher, I heard my back door knob rattling. Harder this time. Someone was trying to force it open. I shouted as loud as I could, "The police are already on their way." The rattling stopped immediately. A few seconds later, I heard the backyard gate slam open again, then slam shut. Whoever had been there ran. The police arrived about 10 minutes later and searched the area, but they didn't find anyone. That was about a month ago. Nothing like that has happened since, but I still have trouble sleeping. Because the more I think about that day, the more one detail keeps bothering me. That couch listing probably never existed. And the moment I showed up at that house, he didn't just meet a buyer, he learned exactly where to find me. The moment I realized the man standing inside that house wasn't actually alive, my stomach dropped. because whoever owned that place was still inside, watching me. I'm a 45-year-old father from Springfield, Missouri, and this happened last year while I was searching for a car for my son's 18th birthday. Like most parents trying to stay on budget, I had spent weeks browsing used car listings online. Everything I found was overpriced. Then I checked Craigslist. That's where I saw it. A 2003 Toyota Camry with 67,000 miles, clean title, no accidents, listed for $3,500. For a Toyota with that mileage, it looked like an incredible deal. The seller lived about 10 miles outside town, so I gave him a call. The man who answered sounded completely normal. He introduced himself as Mark and assured me the car was in excellent condition. We agreed that I'd stop by later that afternoon. I grabbed $3,500 in cash, just in case everything checked out. Looking back, that was probably my first mistake. The address took me down a long dirt road surrounded by trees. Eventually, I reached a small, worn-down house sitting alone on a large piece of land. There weren't any neighbors nearby. The garage door was open, so I walked over to see if anyone was inside. But aside from piles of scattered car parts, the garage was empty. Old tires, engine pieces, rusty metal stacked against the walls. But the Toyota Camry wasn't anywhere on the property. The only vehicle there was an old pickup truck. That's when the situation started feeling strange. Still, I walked up to the front door and checked the house numbers. It was definitely the right address. The doorbell button was missing, so I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. After several minutes, I decided to call the seller. I dialed his number. And that's when I heard something that made my stomach tighten. A phone ringing inside the house. Now I knew for sure I had the right place. But if his phone was inside, why wasn't he answering? I stepped closer to one of the windows and tried to look inside. The house was dim, but I could make out a dining table and a few chairs. Then I noticed something else. Someone standing near the back door, completely still, facing the window. At first I assumed it had to be Mark, so I knocked on the glass. Nothing, not even a blink. I waited a few seconds, still nothing. That's when a strange feeling started creeping up my spine. A normal person would have moved, turned their head, reacted somehow, but this figure hadn't moved at all, not even slightly. I knocked on the window again, still nothing. At that point I realized something was seriously wrong. There wasn't any fence blocking the yard, so I walked around the side of the house toward the backyard. Maybe he just hadn't heard me, but as I got closer to the back door, the truth suddenly hit me. The figure standing there wasn't moving because it wasn't alive. It was a mannequin, dressed in normal clothes, standing upright like someone waiting by the door. For a moment, my brain refused to accept what I was seeing. Then I noticed something else nearby. Next to the door was a small table. On it sat a roll of duct tape, a coil of rope, and a pair of heavy work gloves. That's when pure adrenaline took over. I turned around and ran straight back toward my car. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I jumped into the driver's seat and started the engine. Just before pulling away, I glanced back toward the house. The blinds on the window I had looked through earlier were now closed, but two of the slats were bent open, just enough for someone to look through. And through that narrow gap, I could see movement. Someone was standing there, watching me. That's when I slammed the gas and tore down that dirt road as fast as I could. I didn't slow down until I was miles away. To this day, the whole situation still creeps me out, because that Toyota Camry probably never existed, and whoever lived in that house wasn't trying to sell a car. He was trying to get someone to walk inside. And the worst part is realizing something else. That mannequin wasn't placed randomly. It was standing right by the door, exactly where someone would expect to see a person waiting, which means whoever set that up had done it before. If you have your own true scary story, feel free to share it in the comments. Some of the best stories on this channel actually come from viewers. And if you want to hear more real experiences like this, subscribe to Recorded After Dark.